What's up? How you guys doing? Welcome to a live chat with Coach Renz. And today we're going to be talking about polygamy, or as Jeb like to say, polygamy. But for those who don't know, that's one of my alter egos. But we're going to be talking about polygamy. Will it become normalized in the future? First, we're going to ask what is polygamy. Then we're going to talk about can it become normalized in the future? What are the pros and cons of polygamy? Is it just about sex? Is it just about economics? How do people deal with it? How can you deal with it? How can people grow? Whether they can grow up or grow down. How does it affect children? We're going to talk about all different aspects of it. Now we do have to be mature. We want to have a mature conversation about this. And we're not just looking at this from a Western cultural world, nor are we just looking at it from a religious perspective. But we're just looking at it as human beings and as adults, just coming into thoughts and processes and understandings. So go ahead and share this video. Share it. And if you're not a subscriber of mine, then hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. If you're watching this later, still hit it. Yes, this will be. I believe this will be interesting. So how you guys doing? What's up, Princess and Mind Free? How you guys doing? Got a couple people on already. We're going to give some other people an opportunity to get on before we really get deep diving into this question. This seems like it's been coming up a lot in a lot of circles. You hear a lot of people talking about it. You got people like Brother Polite, I think he has 4 wives. What's up, Derek? How you doing? I think Brother Polite has 4 wives right now. You see it becoming more normalized in many in Western culture. You see it happening more and more, and not just the Mormons, and not just Muslims, and not just West Africans and certain people in India and that sort of thing. You're starting to see it become more normalized, period, just across the globe. And one of the questions, the main question here is, can it ever become normalized? Do you think, like in the next 50 years or 100 years, that polygamy will be normalized? And let's just think about that for a second. How can it become normalized? What's the history of it? Because the history of polygamy will actually tell us if we are headed in that direction. Because as we know, history has a tendency to repeat itself, right? So since history has a tendency to repeat itself, let's think about this for a minute. Now, in the most ancient scrolls, writings, traditions that we find instances where polygamy was good to go. What's up, Shondell? Polygamy was good to go, but then it phased out, then it came back, then it phased out. So it goes back and forth depending upon the culture, but more importantly, what was going on with the culture kind of decides and determines whether or not polygamy was functional. When we look at a lot of ancient Chinese and Tibetan cultures, and many cultures, period, most times, polygamy was more economical than anything else. And there are many different things about those economics that played a part. The first part, which is the most egregious part of it, of the economic aspect of it, is that women were viewed as property. That to a father, the daughter was a burden. So they had rules for polygamy to allow for daughters and widows and sisters to be able to remarry somebody. I mean, there are a bunch of occasions in the Bible and in the Chinese traditions where the daughter, there was a man had multiple daughters, and the fact of the matter is there weren't a lot of men, so he married his daughters off to the one guy, so that his daughters would have a place. They would have a place to be. There were occasions where the first wife couldn't get pregnant. She wouldn't bear a child. So then a sister was married, or another woman was married into the fold in order to produce a male heir. And in many cultures, ancient cultures, especially in a lot of your African cultures, the women did most of the farming work. So men would marry multiple women so that they can have more workers, and then they would want those women to produce sons and daughters so that they can have even more workers. So it wasn't very favorable. It wasn't about love. It was more about economic in a lot of the ancient cultures. That's one thing. Another aspect of the ancient cultures that made it economic as well was the fact of land ownership. Land ownership. Oftentimes polygamy was done so that the land would stay within the families. So if you had a brother, and this brother married a woman, then the woman died or she was deceased, or she had a sister, and then the father died. Well, that land, they wanted to stay in the family, so they didn't want another husband to get it. So that one husband would own the land, and only their children would continue to own the land, especially in areas where land they only owned a small piece of land. So you see, if the land was vast, it wasn't a problem. But when the land is small, when you're in a place like Israel and Syria and places like that where the land is not a whole lot of farmable land, and you have a father, you have daughters, and you have multiple sons, you don't want the inheritance getting too spread out, because now the sizes of the land get smaller, 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 smaller. And they get dispersed through generation after generation. Next thing you know, you don't even know the original person who had 100 acres. Now it's down to like 2. So they did it to keep the land in the family and keep large swaths of land. Shonda said, I heard that some people view a monogamous relationship as a business deal as well. Odd. And that's true. A lot of monogamous relationships are business deals. Look at powerful families, rich families, or landowning families. They marry their children off to make sure that they stay powerful and they stay rich, that they combine forces. So economically, that was another reason for polygamy as well as monogamy. Now in India, they had an interesting spin on it, according to the Vedics and things like that, is that the fact that if you were a Brahmin, you can marry 4 wives, but your first wife had to be a Brahmin, and then you can marry wives who were of lesser caste. You couldn't marry a lesser caste woman as your first wife and then marry up into the. You have to marry your caste, and then you can marry. I'm at 4 wives, next one 3 wives, and the next one can have. Almost every situation that I studied getting ready for this, it would appear that that I lost my train of thought, is what it appears. But no. So in every case. So I was talking about the Brahmins marrying down into the caste system, that you couldn't marry up. You have to marry your that in every case, in almost every case, the situation was that the man had to be able, and this is a common argument in today's society, that the man has to be able to provide for all of his wives. Right? Even in the situations in the Muslim countries today, where if you have multiple wives, the man has to be able to not only provide financially for them, and we're going to break that down a little bit more, how that works in a Western society, because it doesn't work the same way. The same mindset is not there. But you have to provide for them emotionally. You have to be able to provide emotionally for them. You have to be able to provide sexually for them. You have to be able to handle multiple wives, which is why most people in those countries don't have more than one wife, because most guys can't emotionally and sexually handle more than one wife. Now, financially, it's a totally different story. You got to go through history. When you go through history, you look at the whole thing. Historically, when the world was more agrarian, the wives worked the farm just as much as the husband. So it was a matter of, does the husband have enough land to be able to provide for all his wives so that they can all eat well? There was actually a situation in Israel way back, where there was a famine, and this one rabbinic Jewish leader married 300 women because there was a famine. But this guy had plenty of food, so he had plenty of land, plenty of food, so he married 300 women. So he had a situation like that. In today's society, if you bring 3 adults into a household, all 3 of those adults are more than likely working. And if all 3 of those adults are working in the same way that you would on agrarian, but the difference is there's one mortgage, there's one light bill, there's one utility. Let's put all utilities. One utility bill. There's shared work throughout the household. This is when you look at couples who are doing well. Couples, marriages in this format today, it's not agrarian. We're not growing crops. We don't have farms. We're not doing that sort of thing as a majority. But what you do see is you got the husband. He has his gig. Let's say he's a, I don't know, an IT guy. Then you got one wife. She's a nurse, and another wife. She might be an engineer. Well, if you got those three people bringing in those three incomes, and they probably can have a maid take care of the household, that's a totally different economic situation. Totally different economic situation. One of the arguments that I hear from a lot of women is the fact that if you're going to do that, you guys, I know I keep getting bad connection for some reason. If you're going to do that, then the man needs to be able to provide an income to take care of everybody. That's just not. That's not gonna happen. That's not going to happen. That won't happen at all. We know that's not going to happen. I mean, if you look at my situation, if it was me and I own a gourmet popcorn ice cream store, then that just means that we're going to open up more of these stores. And instead of me hiring people to run the stores, me and my wives will run the stores, and we'll manage the stores. And then once we have enough of them being managed, then we can bring other people in. But that's maybe after we have 4, 5, 6 stores, then we start bringing in other management. But at the top will be me and my 3, 4 wives, whatever. So that's how I would do that. I wouldn't do it where I'm saying that, oh, I got to go and do all the work and they just sitting at home taking care of the house. That's not going to happen. Women don't do that today. So why would you expect that in a polygamous situation? It wouldn't. You wouldn't. Everybody would work. It'd be shared economics. And what's funny is that many people are doing that right now. They're just cheating. They're just cheating on each other. But, you guys got to talk to me. I want you guys to talk to me about this tonight. We want to have a conversation about this. Princess says smart. Exactly. It is smart. But what's one of the pitfalls? One of the pitfalls is emotions, man. Is emotions. I was watching this couple today. I was watching this video about this couple today. And they were talking about the biggest challenge they had initially in the first year was getting past their emotion. It was, and I'm not being funny, but it was the women who had to get past their emotions, and get into the understanding that I'm not sharing I'm not sharing a husband. This is just our marriage. That we're just married to the same guy, but they're not sharing a husband. There's no fight. There's no issues like that. And actually, the women were talking about how the two women, they're best friends. They're best friends, and they talk to each other more than they talk to their husband, and they spend more time with each other than their husband, and not in a sexual way. It's just you always got somebody who's there to talk to, somebody who understands you better. Actually, to be honest, a lot of guys could probably use that. It's better to have the girlfriend that everything's out in the open than the girlfriend that's kind of sneaking behind your back. But she's always there for you. So that's what those women were talking about in their situation. Let's see, Project said, bad man. I don't know what that means. All right. What if the first wife is not in agreement? Well, the first wife is not in agreement, and in a lot of the Muslim countries, the first wife has to agree to the wife. If she doesn't agree, then he can't marry a wife. Then it's not a legal marriage. The government won't recognize it, and it's against their Islamic rituals. But just as a point blank period, regardless of any religious thing, just basic human beings. I mean, if the first wife doesn't agree to it, then it's not a smart thing to do. I wouldn't do it, because if she doesn't agree to it, then she's going to leave you. So and even if she reluctantly agrees to it, more than likely you're going to find yourself in a bad situation, because she won't get past her jealousies. She won't get past her insecurities. She won't get past all those things, because in her mind, she never wanted this in the first place. So if I was in that situation where I wanted to have a polygamous relationship and I was married, but she didn't want that to occur, I wouldn't do it if I wanted to stay married to her. I would have to divorce her if I wanted to venture off into having a polygamous relationship. But the first wife has to be on board. I mean, everybody has to be on board for this. No one cannot be on board. And there has to be you have to create complete honesty in the situation as well. I mean, without complete honesty, then it's not going to work at all. You can't show favoritism towards one wife over the other. You have to be able to, as much communication as you give to one, you have to give to the other. As much affection you give to one, you give to the other. And let me put it in better terms. As much communication as each need. As much affection as each need. As much time as each needs. Because if you marry two women, one woman may love daily affection while the other one does not. So the one that loves the daily affection, you give it to her. The one that does not, you don't give it to her. You give her exactly what she needs. And that's being able to fulfill what, their expectations are, their necessary needs. And if you have, and now how you do the sex part, you just do that. Is it considered cheating if she doesn't agree? Well, yes. Well, yes, it's considered cheating, because if she doesn't agree, then you're not going to have a polygamous relationship at all. Because a polygamous relationship is everybody in knowledge of it, and you're in the same household as well. I wouldn't do the situation. I forgot what it's called. It's basically a concubine situation. It has a more of a technical term, but I wouldn't do the concubine version. Sorry, there was something in my contact came out. I wouldn't do the concubine situation where you got one house over here and another house over there. When I was a personal trainer, I had one of those clients where he had two families, one in Atlanta and the other one in Arkansas. He would spend 2 weeks in Arkansas, then 2 weeks in Atlanta, and he would go back and forth. That type of situation caused so much stress on the kids and on them, and it was too much. So it wouldn't be that way. In most civilization, most cultures throughout history, it was one household most of the time. So if you're not going to do one household where everybody's participating, then you really shouldn't even be involved in it, in my opinion. I wouldn't do it. And historically, it shows that type of situation fails more often than succeeds. So I would do everybody's under the same roof. Some can do it where everybody sleeps in the same bed. Others do it where they sleep in different beds. Say what kids would get teased. Hey, your kids gonna get teased no matter what. But no more teasing than the kids who have two lesbian parents or two male gay parents. They're gonna get teased about that. It's no more teased than, you can. Well, it's depending upon your community. If you're a single parent, if your child is in a single parent household, you get teased. Your parents get divorced, they get teased. Kids will find a reason to tease somebody no matter what. No matter what, they're going to find a reason. The biggest backlash is other parents. What type of, I don't want your kid playing with my kid kind of situations. You can probably get that, or we don't want to befriend you, or we don't like you in the neighborhood, or something like that. You probably get more parents who act out, and if their children are acting out, it's probably because they're hearing their parents say negative things about your family. So, but kids are going to get teased. I was teased just for being dark skinned growing up. So, hey, it is what it is, and you can't protect them from everything. You can't protect them from everything, but throughout the world, it happens. Kids are in Nigeria. They're growing up in that situation. 27 Nicole said, I tried this in a previous relationship. It could have been awesome, but he didn't know how to handle it. And I can understand that. So little story. A young lady that I know, not going to mention any names, of course. She was in a similar situation. It was the polyamorous situation where everybody knew, but they didn't live in the same household. But everybody knew, and everybody was, would do things together and that sort of thing. The guy had his wife, his legal wife, and because we're in America, and then he had his, the polyamorous, the concubine style wife, and they communicated, they spent time, the women did things together, all that kind of thing. Now the guy started feeling full of himself, started getting greedy, and actually started chasing after the polyamorous wife, the concubine style wife, sister, when he was told that she's off limits. But he still pursued her anyway because he got greedy. He got filled up with his head. And because he went and did that, then he wanted to put it back off on the women as if they did something wrong. See, he wasn't mature enough to deal with it. And that it does take a certain level. If you didn't grow up in it, if you didn't grow up with that, if that's not part of your culture and you're converting to that, then you have to take into it a certain level of maturity about it. You have to be able to say, these are the borders, these are the requirements of my wives, and I cannot expand beyond that. Unless we have to communicate these things to one another. If I don't know what he did, Nicole. I don't know what he did to that he couldn't handle it. I don't know if he got greedy, whatever. He couldn't deal with the emotions, telling lies. because some guys will see it only as a sexual situation, and then they think, and then after they've been with these two, then they get greedy and they want a third. But we're all feeling a financial need together, so we're just gonna make this thing work out. We having some bad weather here in Atlanta. I'm guessing that's one of the problems with the connection. He's the one who initially wanted it. I was more mature in that situation. Yeah. And sometimes we think we want something, we think we can handle it, we have these visions of how it's going to be, and then we just can't handle it. We just can't do it. We can't handle it. And I apologize. I don't know. Am I chopping or anything? You guys, I don't know why I'm getting such a, it keeps saying bad signal. But let me know if everything's working out fine. But anyway, so I think it does take a certain it does take a certain level of maturity. I would say that when I was in my 20s, I would not have been able to handle that such a thing. As expensive as Chandel said, as expensive as it is to live in places like New York, California, I'm thinking it might be ideal for them. And that actually is a very intelligent comment about it, because it wasn't that type of situation. They would have to be able to handle it. Yes, you do, Prince. So at one point when I was single, I had two female friends. None of us were dating or liked each other in that format. But there was one point where the three of us were just talking about the fact that because of all of our situations, man, it's just been easier for us to just live together. All of us to just combine forces financially and live together. Because we was living in a high-end part of the city of Atlanta, area called Alpharetta. We was living up there, all three of us, but we were all three struggling. And when we met, one didn't have any kids, but it was still like if we all came together, we would really be able to function a lot better financially. The only reason why we didn't, because when we started talking about dating and when somebody gets married and bringing people over and that sort of thing, it was just to my Wi-Fi and get it off my phone. But because there's a lot of things on my Wi-Fi in the house, so I don't know what is going on with this thing. It keeps trying to reconnect. But so what I was saying was that, let's say all of us had decided to be in a polygamous relationship, then that would have eliminated the entire idea of an outside person, of the outside romance. And if the three of us were mature enough and innocent, well, if we liked each other like that, but we didn't. But if we liked each other like that and came together romantically and with our combined resources, then life in that part of town for all three of us would have been much, 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 much easier. Our financial goals that each one of us wanted to achieve would have become much easier for us to achieve. So, in that situation, if we liked each other in that way, if the three of us liked each other in that way, then that would have been an amazing financial boon for us to be in a polygamous relationship. Simply because we would have been in a much better financial position living on that side of town. But so like Chandel said, yeah, in some of these cities and states, it would be much easier financially. Polygamy would be a much better situation. Yeah, and you're right, Princess. You definitely have to be able to handle it. Which that's the part right there. Is, can people handle it? Can people do this thing? Right. I but I think financially, I think it'll be better. Chanel said, but it's frowned upon. So very few will be willing to think about it. And you're right. So many people wouldn't think about it because we're so much into the possessive Western culture of like, this is my husband, my wife. I don't want to share that type of situation. So it'd be difficult for most Americans and Black Americans to do it, even though financially it would be better. I come to an understanding that the marriage license here in America is bondage. Yeah. It is bondage based on how you think about it. I mean, for me, I think about the marriage license as just a legal contract, plain and simple. It's a legal contract that wraps up a whole bunch of things in one, because almost everything that the marriage license does, you can do with power of attorneys and other contracts as well. You can do living wills, and like I said, power of attorneys. You can do financial contracts with people. So I don't think that, the marriage license just wraps up a lot of those things. And there's only a few things that the marriage license take care of that legal that you can't find some other legal remedy for. But people feel stuck. I've seen people in poor relationships, horrible relationships, but that marriage license keeps them there and keeps them sad, not realizing that they need to release each other so that they can go off and try to be happy somewhere else. So I do understand what you're saying, that the marriage license can be bondage in America. It can represent shackles. But as I was researching polygamy, I seen that a lot of some of the problems that married couples have, like the communication, the men being able to communicate emotionally with the women, sometimes a lot of that pressure was alleviated because the woman would have that sister wife there, and that sister wife would help alleviate some of the emotional stress that the other wife is going through. And since she's alleviating some of the emotional stress that the other wife is going through, it's not put on the man, so he doesn't then become stressed out. So a balance is struck in the household, right? But it takes a mature man to recognize when to allow the women to sort out and work things out for themselves, and not having to go in trying to solve every problem. Um, Prince said, I believe that multiple wives is the best plan, especially for black families. And I would agree. I think that it is probably better for most black families, especially in our current situation. I mean, financially, black families are behind. We're all single mother. We have tons of single mothers out there who are struggling every month. They're struggling, trying to figure out just how to feed the kids. And then we got a bunch of kids not having a father figure in the household, not learning from them. I think for the next 100 years, it will be much better for black families in America to practice polygamy, because I think the strength of the black family will increase during that time frame. Uh, Deidre, hey Deidre, welcome. She said, I'm not built to handle a polygamous relationship for financial security or otherwise. And that's the thing. Because of how we grew up and the society we grew up in, most black women, most black men are not prepared emotionally to handle that. Mentally, we're not prepared to handle that. This is why it is more successful in cultures where you grew up with it. It was an everyday thing. It was nothing to know that, Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Johnson number one and Mrs. Johnson number two and Mrs. Johnson number three. You knew that was their family, and they built their financial strength, and everybody came into it knowing it. It's a totally different situation. Trying to change your mind after you've grown up in a Western culture is very difficult. Um, Prince said, tons of homeless women and children and fatherless. Yeah, you have to be selfless, and that's true. I mean, in a sense, we have a variation of polygamy that goes on in the black community, where you have one dude and he got three baby mamas. Some of those guys, I ain't gonna say a lot because I don't know the numbers. Some of those guys, they're not present emotionally and financially in the lives of their children or the household. But a lot of them are, and a lot of them are still attached to those households. So you're still linked. It's just you're linked through the ex-wife or the baby mama situation. I mean, even me myself, I'm not married to my children's mother anymore, so she's my ex-wife. But we have still maintained a relationship, a friendship over this time frame, these 10 years that we've been divorced, because we still have three kids to take care of. We have three kids to raise. I still call my son and deal with my son now, and my daughters as well. My daughters, they pretty much call me every day, most especially the oldest. But would it have been easier if there was another wife involved and I was still in the house with my children? We was all still in the same household, and I would have been able to raise them more on hand. Would my children have been better off? Sure, I believe that they would have been. Um, but a lot of us, we're in that situation right now, where you may be married right now, but your children's father is still very much involved in their lives, and so the households are still linked. So we still have this linkage of household, but unfortunately, there's bitterness in most of these situations, which doesn't do anyone any good. Um, what about marriage between two women who are just best friends, just to get the benefit, military and tax, and blend their children non-sexual? Amana, am I saying that right? Amana? No, there's no N. So, Emma, I'm gonna call you Love. I know that part, right? Um, and my contacts keep moving around in my eye. Now, marriage between two women who are just trying to get the benefits, as far as I mean, that's just a business situation. That is just a pure business situation. Heck, I know people who are heterosexual who get married just for the business situation because they want tax deductions and they want benefits and shared benefits and things like that. But that does happen. Now, I think when that happens, that is just purely for the financials. I think they're headed up the wrong pathway because eventually they're going to have emotions towards somebody. They're going to meet somebody and they're going to have emotions towards that person. And then the financial deal will be in jeopardy. And then they'll have anger issues towards each other. And if the kids are mixed up in that, you're setting those kids up, for a hardship that they don't deserve. So even though I understand it, I don't think you should do it because it has a huge pitfall waiting for it, which is when they emotionally get caught up in somebody else, right? So I understand the process and the thought process of it. Because I've known guys who were like in the military, got married to women who had kids, and said, "I want to," they wanted to get that extra pay, and then of course the kids get extra pay for the kids, they get extra pay for the wife. The dude wanted to get base housing, he got the base housing, and he got extra pay for that. So he gives her in my day it was called BAQ. He gives her the BAQ for the kids, and she gets that every month. She's been getting that every month, still gets that, even though she's not married to the guy she's dating now, but I'm pretty sure they probably will get married soon. But they may not get married simply because she'll have to give up. I think her youngest son hasn't graduated yet, so she'll have to give up that money, right? But he lives in a whole nother state. They don't even live near each other, but they got married. They getting that, they're utilizing those benefits, and in that situation it kind of works, but the kids are kind of they kind of go through some stuff with the kids. Deidre said that friends married for the benefits. My mom is an example of that. Best friend married for the benefits of the children, and he was an awesome stepdad. And quite honestly, only because I know the people, I'm not gonna like express that, but I know that so perfectly well. I know a man who was best friends with a woman. She had 2 kids. The dad abandoned them. He married the woman, became their father, the kid's father. To this day, those kids, well, they're grown now, they only know him as their father. That is their dad. No 2 ways about it. And all the family, siblings, everybody around them recognize that's their dad. And he was great. But he was just a friend. He was just a friend who stepped up, to his, and helped out his friend. So it happens. Now, the benefit, I don't know if there was, I'm sure that there was some financial benefits that were available that was taken advantage of, but I've seen that too. And it's an interesting thing, to see that. But as far as a situation where people can do this, it really does take a sit down, a long-term conversation, a great understanding and perspective. 2 Western culture people, or 3-4 Western culture people, that's going to be hard. So you really, really, really got to be willing to work through things and work through conversations, because without that, it's not going to work. If you're possessive, you're going to have problems. If you feel envy, if you're going to be envious over, does she satisfy him more than I do? Does he spend more money on her? And if he's immature enough to spend more money and more time on one than the other, if he starts doing dumb stuff like that, then he's going to mess it up. If the women get into cat fights and arguments and jealousy, then they're gonna mess it up. So because we didn't grow up in it, it's different. But what's funny is that about 8, 9, 10 months ago, this conversation was on a friend of mine's podcast on Facebook. After the podcast, she joined a polygamous group on Facebook. She put me in that group. I didn't participate as far as conversation, but I just watched and I was looking because I was curious. It was a curiosity. And I was surprised at how many black women, I shouldn't say girl, I'm 46, that's why I say girls. How many black women who were in their 20s who were involved or interested in polygamy. How many were interested and how many were involved? How many were looking for sister wives, shared husbands, polygamous situation? I was amazed for the time frame that I was in that group of how many people were interested in it who were under the age of 30. There were a lot more than I expected, way more than I expected. So I didn't even think the group would be that big, but the group had almost 10,000 members in it, and I was surprised by that. I mean, I know America's a big country and shouldn't think 10,000 is really not a lot when you compare the population, but I was still amazed that there would be that many people who were openly interested in it. I guess that hand up mean you too. And curious, how old are you, Princess? I'm just curious about that. Like, how old are you, and why? Why are you interested in that? Yeah, there's no wrong answer to it. Just curious. How old are you and why? Chandel said, I wonder why that is. The next generation, I think they, when we was growing up, when I'm 46, again, like I said before, when I was growing up, if you knew certain people, okay, you're 36, 37 now, okay, yeah, you're in the middle. You're in the middle right there. Okay, that's interesting. You're in the middle. Because, like, I grew up, and you knew there was a guy. He was married forever and a day, right? Okay, Chandel, you closer to my age. But he was married forever and a day. But he had a concubine. Everybody in town knew. Everybody in town knew that him and this other woman, this is his wife, this is his other woman. They got children. And everybody knew that situation. And everybody was fine. But it was hush hush. It was like, well, we're not going to see. We know we don't like it, but just, nobody says anything. The dude comes Christmas, both houses, Thanksgiving, both houses. He's doing his thing. And everybody just accepted it. But it was still this whole big taboo, dark cloud kind of deal. I think the younger generation, a lot of that dark cloud has been taken away. That the taboo of it all, the church folks talking about you and the neighbors talking about you and they whispering about you and all this kind of, I think a lot of that's been taken away, and culturally, musically, they see these entertainers who they got 3-4 women with them, and everybody's fine, and I think that is what they've gotten used to. We didn't see that as much. You didn't see Run DMC with 3, 4, 5 women. You didn't see Marvin Gaye with 3, 4, 5 women. Even New Edition, they didn't have 3, 4, 5 women. They would have one in the video, something like that. You didn't see the guy. I don't know who half these artists are today, but you didn't see an artist with, today you'll see an artist and he may be hugged up with 3, 4, 5 women, and all of them are like happy. And those images play on people's psychology. So I think they've grown up without that, right? And Princess says, so many fatherless children, and I want better for the black community. However, the church has been doing it forever. And you're right, there are. And the church has been, explain that a little bit better. I don't want to go off on my tangent. I want to make sure I understand what you mean by that one. But there are a ton of fatherless kids out there. And I know people say they can go to mentorship programs, they can go to Big Brother programs, they can do all these kind of things. Kids grow up differently based on who's in the house. The person that comes home every day is different than the Big Brother that they see once a week or twice a month. Totally different. Love said yes, Waco and Utah. Now the Waco, Texas thing, that was different. You're talking about somebody who he manipulated people and even took people who were already married. These people are married. He's saying that all the women are his women and all of them are the bride, because he was saying that he was Jesus. You're talking about David Koresh, talking about he was Jesus, and he was saying all the women are married to me. So that was like the extreme psycho controlling variation of that. Now in Utah with the Mormons, the Mormons started outlawing polygamy mainly because they wanted to become a state. There was such anti-polygamy going on in America that in, I think it was like 1906, Utah wanted to become a state, and the country was like, no, you're not going to be a state. You're going to stay a territory because we're not doing that polygamy thing. And they finally caved in and got rid of it. But you see a lot of sex, and it's been growing. A lot of polygamists have been coming back, and it's been put on TV. The next generation, you think the current generation of 20, 30-year-olds, the next generation who've been watching, that's why a lot of them are white Americans who are getting into polygamy, because they've been watching Sister Wives. They've been watching all them shows. And that imagery and that thought process is going to normalize in their mind. Oh, pastors and women in the church, exactly. There's always a church scandal back in the day, even today, of pastors having women in, having those type situations. You might as well just be out in the open with it. And I'm horrible with names, but Asha, I think I'm saying it right, Asha Black. I've seen so many men have multiple families growing up. I expect most men to have multiple families. And whether we're doing it on purpose or not. I mean, like I said, for myself, I was married to my kid's mom for 17 years. We was best friends in high school. So 22 years of relationship. I'm still connected to that household. She's still connected to mine. My kids will always be a connection. And then you move on and you start having other families, and so you develop connections there as well. But most of the time back in the day, those connections stayed and remained. The guy was still going over there and having romantic relations and stuff. So it was kind of crazy. Deidre said, expose them to the men who can mentor them. It don't necessarily have to be in their church. There are many avenues. There are many avenues. Like I said, you can have mentorship. You can have Big Brother programs and all those sorts of things. But I will say, again, there is a huge difference in having a man in the house who comes home from work every day. It does something different to a young man when he sees the man get up in the morning, he goes to work, he comes back, and he take care of the family, do what's necessary. And he sees that every day. A man gets up, he goes to work. I saw my grandfather get up and go to work. I didn't live with my father, but I knew he was running the company, so I knew he got up and he went to work. His brother, my uncle, he owned the company. He got up every day and he went to work. I saw my grandmother said, hey, we need an extra $700 by the end of the month. I saw my grandfather go out and hustle up that $700. I saw a grown man being a grown ass man every day, right? So because I saw that difference, I saw that every day. When I see some of these kids who don't see that every day, they got some guys in the neighborhood, they got some of that, but they're not that guy's not sitting down with them at the table having dinner, having discussions, finding out about their day, discussing the ins and outs about their day, how they handle conflicts, dealing with little girls now that they starting liking them. They don't see all of that. They don't get to have that experience, right? And what I found is that young men hunger for that. Whether they say it or not, whether they realize it or not, they hunger for it. They hunger for that guy who's coming home every day, who's joking around with them, playing around with them, wrestling them, beating them up a little bit, teaching them how to defend themselves. But then they also get to see that guy who loves on their mother, who shows her the attention, and they need that. They need to see that too. And when they're not seeing it, when they grow up without seeing it, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to be that to the next one. They don't know how to be that to their wife when they start dating. They don't know how to be that, Yes, there is a difference because it's not about sex, and it's not. It's really not about. I ain't gonna say it's not that sex is not a part of it, but it's not the overall major thing. It's an important part, just like in any relationship, but it's not the catalyst to do it. If that's a guy's catalyst to do it, then he shouldn't do it. He shouldn't do it at all. All right, you should just be single and just let women know that, hey, I'm just out here being single, having fun, right? But that shouldn't be your catalyst. Seeing is believing with kids too, and that's exactly right. Seeing is believing, all the time, anytime. I never hid my affections from my children because they need to see how I am. Like my kids needed to see me being affectionate to their mother. They need to see me opening the door. They need to see me organizing and running the house. They need to see me out in that yard. They need to see me taking out trash. They need to see me not let, it's Sunday, I'm finna go and fill up your tank so that you have gas for the whole week. They need to see all that, they need to see me doing all that so that my daughters say, which is very hard for my two girls, right? It is very hard for them because when they date somebody, their standard is me. And they're dating these young men who didn't have a me in their house. So these young men are not meeting the standard. And when they don't meet the standard, my daughters, they kick them to the curb, right? Or one of my daughters, she's dating a guy. He's a nice young man, but he's not meeting the standard. And I try to help him. I try to talk to him a little bit, try to let him know. But you know, these young men need to see that, and they're not seeing it. And in the current situation of the black community in America, there's really not, and I hate to say this, it's hurt my soul. There's really not enough high standard black men to go around. There's enough black men to go around. There's enough. When women say that there's not enough men, there is enough. But a high standard one that knows how to show affection, one that knows how to be stern and when to be stern, one that knows how to organize, one that gets up every day and goes out there and grinds, one that knows how to talk to kids and talk to his wife, ones that know how to do that, that's hard to find. It really is. What if my daughter wanted to be a part of a polygamy group? Could you be accepting of it? Yeah, I would. I would. Actually, that's a conversation that my older two girls, we've already had before. That if that was something that they chose, I expressed to them, you have just as much as you interview the guy, as much as you watch that dude to see what kind of person he is, you got to do the same thing with the other woman. And what is your why? Why are you interested in that? But yeah, we've had that conversation, and I would, if that's what my kids chose, I tell my kids all the time, it's about how people treat you. It's about the actions they take towards you. And if they show you love and affection, if they show you respect and honor in the way that you receive it, I'm going to be happy for you, because I only really care about my kids being happy. However they're happy, I don't really care. How they do it, that's up to them. But what I care about is them actually achieving happiness in their lives. Let's see. Chanel said most people can't define. Nope, they sure can't. You did a great job demonstrating how men should represent themselves. Thank you. I appreciate that. Trish. That'd be cool if that was the Trish I used to train way back in the day, who lives in like Abu Dhabi somewhere now. Men have a big effect on our kids' lives. They have a tremendous effect on our kids' lives. Your daughters learn who they're going to date. Your sons learn how to be. And the same thing with the mothers. Sons learn who they're going to date. The women learn who they should be. I mean, there's a reason why it takes both male and female energy in the house. That is why Chanel said that's why so many not so great people have a bunch of children around this country. It does, right? What does the guy say? There's a common little thing. It says that we got to get a license to buy a gun. We got to get a license to drive a car. We got to get a license for all these other things, but we don't have to get a license to have children, right? To be parents. I mean, good gracious. Raising a child, raising a person, a human being, is more powerful and more dangerous than somebody driving drunk in a car. Because the human being you raise can wreak so much havoc in this world. Can wreak so much havoc in this world. So, I mean, that's just such an important job that we don't teach. There's nothing taught about that. We expect parents to teach it, but the parents don't know. Their parents don't know. Look at how many parents have no idea how to teach sexuality to their children, how to teach intimacy to their children. They let them learn by watching TV. They let them learn by listening to music. They let them learn. They figure it out. They have the one little conversation about diseases and things like that. But do you really teach? How many of you guys actually were taught by your parent how to make love? How many of you? How many were taught how to give affection? I mean, other than what you saw, how many were taught that? I mean, I saw stuff, but I was different, right? Not mine. I was different. I saw, as much as I love my grandfather, in all the years of marriage, 51 years of being together with my grandmother, he told her he loved her one time. I saw her yearning for affection, and because I love my grandmother so much, I was determined that I was never going to not be affectionate, So, And my mother, though, she was a very affectionate woman. So I saw what affection does look like. But I saw her making bad decisions on who she gave her affections to. But most kids don't see it, and they mimic what they see. Most don't do the opposite. They're going to mimic what they see. Chanel said my folks hated each other. And you got that in so many households where you watch parents and they'll still stay together because being divorced is horrible in society. It's like you don't do it back in those days in the 60s and 40s, 50s. I'm just affectionate naturally, but I never saw it at home. And there are some people who are that way. There are people who are that way. I have a cousin. We grew up together. Well, her mother wasn't very affectionate, but she was. My cousin was always with me. But my cousin is not affectionate at all. Right? She's hardly affectionate. I mean, part of me picking on her is that I sneak hugs from her and I sneak kisses on the cheek from her. Like I have to jump her from like when she ain't looking. Right? I had to catch her like when she's doing something, then I just went up and grab her, and of course she fights me off and everything. But I've noticed she starts to give other people hugs and stuff now. But she still don't want me to hug her. But I just mess with her. But yeah, I mean, some people you have natural tendencies. 25% of who you are is your genetics. The other 75% is who you learn, what you learn in your environment. So if you're naturally that way, that's just genetics for you. My mom's an evangelist, and she doesn't even sleep with her husband. Oh, damn. That's just horrible. See, that's where that religion gets all in the way. That religion will mess people up in a heartbeat. How can you be an evangelist and not even sleep with your husband when it talks about the defiling of the marriage bed, when it talks about not saying no to your husband or wife, that your body doesn't belong to you, that it belongs to the other person? How can you, when you're supposed to come one together and you're supposed to do it often, that you're supposed to get it and not let temptation come in? It talks about that over and over again, and I never understand how religious people can be that way when the book keeps telling you that you need to be getting it all the time. That just blows my mind. Chanel said, I'm cold. I wish I could change, but I don't feel comfortable with it. Well, don't wish you can change. Just change. Let me tell you like I tell other folks. If you want something, if you want to be something, just be it. And if you got to practice, remind yourself, put up markers to remind yourself, then put up markers to remind yourself. But you just got to be it. You can change it. You can be whoever you want to be. I ain't listening to that. They're just laughing at me. Yeah, Jesus did it. I know you read the I think it's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, Secret Writings of Peter, Secret Writings of James. It talks about how Jesus was kissing all over Mary Magdalene, getting her some sugar all the time. That she was his favorite. But that's just, people want to interpret. You got to understand, people, they went into this Puritan mindset, and then the Puritan mindset, Pilgrim mindset, is still, has a lot of influence over religion, over Christianity, because it's still about maintaining this chastity and this Puritan behavior that, nobody wants to be Jezebel. So, that's why I'm gonna be honest with you. If I were like completely single, right? If I was single right now, and if I met a woman and she was like, "Oh, I'm coming out of Christianity" or something like that, a part of me would be a little bit like, because especially if they came out of one of them occult versions, because I'll be like, you might be so repressed that you can't come out of your shell. And I'm sorry, it sounds so horrible, but I'm willing to teach anybody else how to come out of their shell. But I'm not trying to teach a woman who's with me to come out of their shell, because it is much harder to teach somebody who's with you than to teach somebody who's not. So I don't know if I have the energy to want to go through it, because that could take years of work, and quite frankly, I don't feel like it. I've done it too many times, trying to teach somebody, and then they don't learn until it's over. Then when they get blindsided by me breaking up with them, all of a sudden then they want to learn it. So I just don't have time for that. We are taught. We had no. I'm not sure I understand that. We are taught he had no. Oh, that he had no. Right. That's what they teach you, even though that's not true. If Jesus existed and if Jesus was a rabbi, if you look at the writings and the understanding of the culture, a rabbi has to have a wife. You can't be called a rabbi. You can't be called master unless you were married. Even to this day, rabbis have. You can only be a rabbi if you're married. You can't be a single rabbi. You don't have to. And the Catholics probably need to switch over to that so they can stop molesting folks. Um, that is so hard. I don't know what you're talking about that's so hard because I don't know when that came up. If it was about me not teaching anybody, then I'm sorry. Or is it about teaching people? Yes, that is hard for people to come out of their shell. Um, I had to turn my husband out after he let go of religion, and he's just fine now. It's easier for a woman to turn a man out than it is for a man to get a woman to come out of her shell. Women have been not only taught by religion, but taught by this is what good girls do, and this is what whores do. But most men want what the whore does, as they like to say, as how they were taught. I'm not saying that a woman who does freaky things is a whore, but that's just how it's been taught, that this is not what good girls do. This is what the street women do. But the guys like what the street women do. So, it baffles my mind, because if the husband is saying, hey, this is what I like, this is what I like, and he's running out to find, eventually he gets frustrated and runs out to the street to get it, then why let him go get it outside the house? Bring it home. And if it was a polygamous situation, he wouldn't have to worry about it, because both of it'd be there anyway. So, I'm working on it because I've seen how negatively it affects people who don't care about it. Well, good. Well, stop working on it. Just do it. Just tell yourself, okay, I'm finna go in, I'm gonna hug her, and I'm gonna kiss her real good, and I'm gonna sit there, and I'm gonna put my arm around her, I'm gonna watch TV, and I'm gonna pull her closer to me while we're driving down the street, and put my hand on her leg. Just make yourself do it until it becomes habit, until it becomes who you are now. You can be who you want to be. I went through that, but I came through it just great. He was patient with me, and now I'm in heaven. That's good. I'm glad he was patient. I'm not trying to sound sarcastic, but it's just been my experience. We're all scarred by our own experiences. And even though I don't know, I would just be leery of it if a woman was like, well, I don't like doing this and I don't like doing that, and but I'm willing to learn. Oh, no. I done heard that I'm willing to learn a lot too many times. Pops was loveless, non-emotional cat, and I just find it every day. Right, and that's right. That's how you do it. And see, my grandfather was like that, but because I loved my grandmother so much and I saw her pain, I would hug my grandmother all the time and kiss her on her cheek all the time. And, I drove her around. I wasn't driving Miss Daisy, I was driving Miss Isabel, so it was like I was trying to give her everything I possibly could that she was missing from my grandfather. By just showing her the attention. So it's just something that naturally, because I was that way with her, when I started dating, girls and stuff like that, it naturally flowed over to them. And then I just always had a huge interest in intimacy and romance and poetry and all that sort of thing. So it was also like how Deidre said, it was just a natural thing for me as well. So I easily fell into it. They wasn't ready. No, they weren't. And actually, what's sad about it is that if I think through it, there's 3 women that I dated over my life that if they were interested, if they were mature enough and interested in polygamy, we would all be in a great situation right now, financially, emotionally, intimately. It would have worked out perfectly fine if they could have handled that type of situation. Yeah. That's 3, maybe 4. Maybe 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. It would have worked out great. They would have been in. Now the couple of them who, no situation with me would have worked out with them. What part of the world is polygamy normal? Right now, well, most of the Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Yemen, Egypt, all throughout Western Africa with, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, all these Western African countries, is very normal. I mean, it's normal on both sides, both polygamy and monogamy. And through Western India, large swaths of land, area of Western India, and then on through the island chain right there, which Indonesia. I was trying to think of that island chain. I kept wanting to say the Polynesian Islands earlier today, but through Indonesia is very popular. So you have a nice, sizable area of cultures that it's normal. That is normal. It wouldn't be abnormal to go to Nigeria, Congo, those areas, and see polygamy. There's a guy I used to live in the same building with, and we was looking to do some business together. He's Guyanese. No, he's from the Gambia. He's from the Gambia. Um, yeah, the UAE you can have, and see in most Muslim countries the max is 4 wives. That's what you can have is 4 wives. That's what Islam teaches for. But like in the Gambia, the one of the guys that I know who's here in America, he has a wife here in America, and he has 2 wives in Gambia right now. His father had 4 wives. He has like 17 brothers and sisters type situation. And that was just normal in Gambia and Ivory Coast and Guyana. So that's where it's pretty normal. He said, but those places treat their women. A lot of them do, but you have to understand around the world, women are treated like that. I mean, to say that those places, men treat their women like crap, men treat their women like crap in Japan, they treat them like crap in Okinawa. Men treat their women like crap in many of your South American countries, in like Peru and Chile, they treat their women like crap. And even in Mexico and Guatemala and Panama, women are treated like crap. Belize, women are pretty much sold off. You know how many women in Belize who are trying to escape to marry an American or Canadian because they're treated like crap in those countries. Women are treated like crap in all types of societies throughout this world because women aren't too far away from when you was looked upon as property, right? You're not too far away from that. So women are still treated like that in most countries. It's not just about polygamy. That's just how women are treated, period. You know. But he must be able to take care of all of them at all the same and share in the same amount of time. Right. He does need to have to be able to take care of all of them. Now, understand, like I said earlier, financially, it's not about the man making enough money to take care of all of them. It's about the entire family unit working together. See, if I was in a polygamous relationship, I'm not going to go out here and I'll be foolish to say that I'm going to make all the money. I'm like, look, what's your education level? What kind of work you like doing? You're going to do that work. What's yours? You're going to do that. And we will build that together, and then we would use my financial plans and build an empire together, financial empire together. You know, so finance is not going to be a problem. The thing that the guy really has to be concerned about, can he emotionally be there for each one of those women? Although a lot of the emotional support will come from the other women with each other, because hopefully, well, I wouldn't put women together who are going to be at odds with each other. These women will have to become friends, at least, at minimum, really, really good friends. Best friends would be great, right? Like the show Sister Wives. And then as they develop their relationship, some of the issues that the woman deals with, she's probably going to have one of the other sister wives to talk that she would prefer to talk to, other than myself, even though I'm pretty dang great if I say so myself. But she would probably prefer one of them. So a lot of that burden I'm not gonna have to deal with. Then intimately, then you have to make sure. But that's about finding out what's her intimacy level, what's her intimacy level, what's her intimacy level. Now I need to be able to provide intimately for each one of these women, so that I can make sure that everybody, no one goes away dissatisfied. No one is wondering, like, you know, like I was watching this one show, and you can tell that one of the wives, she had a high intimacy level. But because the dude had like 4 or 5 wives, she only got to be with the dude like once every 10 days or something like that. I forgot. It worked out something like that. Once every 10 days, she got like 2 nights with him. She was suffering in that situation. She didn't need to be with them having like 5 other wives. She needed to be like maybe him and one other wife, but not 5. That was too much for him. So I can see that. But the dude would have to be able to do all that. Have to provide for them. It's all about building. If he doesn't have a plan or a vision, then there's no need. If he doesn't have a plan or a vision, it's more than likely he was not going to get sister wives, period, unless these women are like severely impoverished and they just need a step up. Jesus said, "Hats off to those who can do it. It's just not my DNA," and that's understandable. And that's actually a very mature thing. When you know when you know yourself well enough, then you don't do that. You don't do it. And beyond that, all I say is this: you got to make sure that you're with somebody that you can fulfill 80% of their needs. Whoever they are, whatever their needs are, whatever way that they feel love, whatever way they feel, support, commitment, communication, that 80% of that got to be filled. Otherwise, they're going to find it somewhere else. They're going to find it somewhere else. And that's another thing about it. I think that it would cut down on outside relationships, like unapproved outside relationships, adultery, basically. It would cut down on that because, I'm sorry, for most guys, they in their brain initially is like, yeah, man, I want 5 wives. After you get the second one, you probably like, man, this is all I can handle. I won't go to sleep. This is all I can handle. I need to go meditate. I can't handle three. Ooh, that's too much. So it depends. What if it was 1 girl and 5 guys? So 1 girl and 5 guys. That's called polygamy, right? I think I'm saying it right. Polygamy, where there's only a few. There's like 4 areas in the world where that's going on. Most of them are in Nepal and Tibet. And most of the reason why that's happening is because the scarcity of resources has created a situation where they need to minimize how many births are going on, but the scarcity of land also, they need to minimize how many people are vying for property. So you have some in Tibet and the Himalayan mountains, Nepal, that area is where you have that situation. Now, that again is where you're going to need a high level of maturity, because now you got to have guys who don't get caught in their ego, guys who are saying that they can handle this. Now, I got a question though: how many women would be able to handle 5 guys and their sexual needs? That's going to be a huge problem. Now, 5 guys going out there working, grinding, building an empire together financially, that's just as good as 1 guy having 5 women. They can go out there and they can build. Now, they're not going to build a huge family. They're not going to have a bunch of kids, but they can build an empire financially. But how many women can handle 5 husbands intimately? Emotionally, she probably wouldn't have to handle the 5 husbands, because trust me, dudes will play some video games, go shoot some ball, go hang out, whatever. They'll be on it. They do that. Hey Brian, how you doing? But the intimacy part is, I think, where you'll have the biggest issue when it comes to 1 wife and 5 dudes. What were you saying about the men with the 3 different baby mamas? I believe I was saying something to the effect that they're pretty much living a polygamous lifestyle just in secret, or they're living it, but there's animosity amongst everybody, right? Because baby mama number 1, number 2, number 3, they're fighting over resources of what he got. They're also fighting over time. You ain't spend time with my child, you spend time with that child. They're fighting over that, and then because he's not intimate with these 3, he's over here being intimate with number 4. So that number 4 is getting resources, getting time. And that's like the worst situation, because he ain't spending enough time with anybody. He's not raising any children. Those kids are not seeing a father in the household at all. So that's actually more stressful. No more than 2 husbands, so 1 wife, 2 husbands. Well, I think 1 wife might be able to handle 2 husbands intimately. She better have still gonna have to have a drive. This is one thing I try to explain to women about dudes, about men. You know how you get hunger pains every day? You get hungry every day. Like after so many hours, you get hungry. The average man, about every 15 hours, he gets horny. Okay, the horniness starts to begin. It starts kicking in on average. Some earlier, some later, but it starts kicking in around 15 hours after the last occasion. Now, about 10 hours later, he's starting to get a little frustrated. About 20 hours later, he's starting to get mad. So, just saying. Now, mentally, a lot of guys can be like, okay, I'm pissed off, but I ain't gonna worry about it. I'm just keep on moving. But then too many days go by. Oh, he mad as hell. He's irritated. He's frustrated. Now he don't even want to deal with you, because it's like, why? So you can put me through this cycle again? So you got 2 men? You better be ready to roll with it, or find some jokers who can wait 36 hours. Most of my female friends say that they don't like to share. I doubt that would go anywhere anytime. Yeah, most American women are, most women in the world are not going to do this simply because they weren't raised up to think that it was okay. They was raised up to think that something was wrong with it. They was raised up to think that one man, one wife. They was raised up that way. Most dudes only think that they can handle it because they seen guys cheating all the time. And that's why they think that they can handle it. They really weren't raised up in it either. So it will have to be a change in mindset for everybody in order for that to happen. Otherwise, it's just not going to be. Dear says she'll be walking like a cowboy if they both have a high-strung appetite. You're exactly right. And I mean, I'm not a woman, but if I was a woman and I wanted to do that, I would find guys who had a very low drive, who was like maybe career focused or whatever, because it's a different kind of friction, just put it that way, for women than it is for dudes. Most women share at some time in their lives. And that's the thing about it. You're right. Most women, especially in our black community, unfortunately, because we're, one, a smaller number, but because of how society has separated the black family, most women are dealing with that, and whether they realize it or not, they're dealing with it. That's what's going on. They're sharing. Hell, if you're going to share, you might as well bring it all in the same household and build something with it. Yep, that is true. And or she would need to find some eunuchs. Yeah, go find you some eunuchs. They ain't many eunuchs running around, so I don't know where she's gonna find a eunuch from. But it's an interesting concept. It would take some serious education and some serious emotion working for a couple, for people to be able to work through it and get past their emotions and recognize that there's no slight on anybody. But there's one guy that I knew of a few years back. He was dead set on gonna be a polygamist, and he moved to I just said the country, Ivory Coast. He moved to the Ivory Coast about 15 years ago. And because that's what he wanted. That's what the lifestyle that he wanted. And in his mind, he wasn't going to find it here in America. And he couldn't work his way into the African cultures who were here in America. They wouldn't accept him in. So he figured I'd just go over there and immerse myself. And that's what he did. And last time I heard from him, he had like 2-3 wives. And last time I heard from him was like 8 years ago. So... and he's doing fine. Last time I heard from him, he was doing great. So I'm pretty sure I can find him now, since there wasn't social media back then. There's no social media now. I can probably find him. But yeah, it will be difficult. It's difficult for our women to find men with so many of our brothers in prison. I know the struggle is real for our queens. It is. There is a lot in prison. But like I was saying earlier, the biggest challenge for them is not even... The biggest challenge for our women is not even the men in prison. It's the men who don't know how to be a man. Right? They keep ending up with dudes who don't know how to be a dude because they were never taught and trained how to be a man. Right? And then when you do add in the prisons, the ones who are in prison, then you add in the ones who like other men. I mean, it's a hard thing for, a black woman to find that guy who can handle it. And then when they do find the guy, are they going to treat him pretty much like crap because they got burned by so many other dudes before? Right? That's the other part. That's the other part of that I think will help. Polygamy helps out. You got burned in this relationship. Now you get this other person. Everything that you are mad about or holding against that person, you put it on this person. Right? And then that person, all he has is you. All he got is you. No other outlets. And then you don't have any other outlets. And then you don't get to see, sometimes when you are a third party watching, you get to see a person. You get to see how a person really is. So when you see him with the other wife, when you see how he treats everybody else, then maybe you say, oh, you know what? I'm looking at him. He's not like my previous. He's not like my ex. So maybe I need to get over myself. Maybe I need to get over myself and be who I really am. And if it's not who I really am, be what would make this whole situation great. You know? But sometimes when we're just in it with each other, all we see is what's in front of us. You know? And then all we also see is things in our past. And we don't get past that. And we stay stuck. Right? We stay stuck in that situation. And that doesn't allow us to be the best version of ourselves so that we can actually have a great relationship. You know, if you really think about it, most of the time, when you had the opportunity for a great relationship, some relationship was just bad. You just matched up improperly. But when you had the opportunity for a great relationship, most of the time, you were a big catalyst for messing it up. It wasn't always, everything's not on the other person. And that introspective looking is something that a lot of us don't do. And then we still hold on to stuff because we're trying to protect ourselves. That's because we don't know who we are. She don't know herself, and he don't know himself. Exactly. I'll tell you right now. When I first got married, we dated through high school. Then we was married for 17 years. We got married I was 19. I didn't know who I was at 19. And then when we grew, we kind of grew apart because as I got to know who I am, she got to know who she was. It didn't match, you know, in certain areas. So didn't know who we were. I got married again, right? That second marriage. I'll just tell you this. After 4 years, she told me, I thought I was going to be a certain way when I got married, but I realized that I'm not. And actually said I realized that I'm more like my mother, which I didn't care for her parents' relationship, so I knew that wasn't going to work. But she had no idea who she really was. She had an image, an idea, a thought, but it wasn't who she really was. So I don't hold any anger towards that because she just didn't know. But I find that most people don't really know who they are. They have an image of who they want to be, and most of them aren't willing to go the length and do the work that's required in order for them to be that. So they just go with the flow of what they've been conditioned to be, what their culture, what their experience has taught them to be, and they just follow that. And that leads to nowhere. That's just going to lead you to having the same relationships you had in the past. Because if you're still being you, then you're attracting what the same type person or the same type situation that then is going to end the same way the previous one ended. And then you're going to think it's that person again, or you're going to think it's something you just not meant for you. But really, it's just you still being you, and you still vibrating at the same level that created the previous situation and the one before that. All right, and you got to make massive changes in order to change that situation. That's why, like, going into polygamy is a massive change. It's a massive change. But whatever you do in your relationship to not be the same situation as the previous, you got to make a massive change in order to not have it. You know, it's kind of like when I lost 70 pounds. I gained 300. I got up to 300 pounds at one point in my life. I didn't slowly start integrating myself into working out. No, I massively right at the very beginning, 2-3 hours a day. Then I hit 2 workouts a day. It was a massive, immediate, change in my lifestyle. Massively, I just stopped what I was eating, that day. My way into a change. I got to slowly make my way into a change. When I'm coaching people and they say that to me, then sometimes in my inside I want to tell them I don't want to work with you because I ain't got time for baby steps. Massive if you want something great in your life. So if you start out good, then a year later the first wife won't out. Well, I think if you start out in a polygamous relationship and the first wife was in and it was started out good, I don't see why they would want out. Why would they want out if it's going well? If everything's going great, why would you leave it? That doesn't make sense. Unless I'm reading that incorrectly. If you start out good, then a year later, the first. Yeah, because, I'm sorry. That's like, I start eating a great burger. I want to eat it all the way to the last bite. I'm not stopping because, oh man, this first bite was real good. Second bite good. Yeah, I think I stopped. I'm good right there. No, I'm going to keep going. So I think if it starts out great, you wouldn't stop it. Mm-mm. Because people start talking. And this goes for any kind of relationship, polygamist or monogamous relationship. the moment you start letting outside people's influence your relationship, outside people's opinions and thoughts influence your relationship, yep, family too, then your relationship is doomed. It's doomed. You know, I've been in a relationship where the family didn't like me, right? Amazingly, yes, I know it's me, it's Coach Renz. Somebody didn't like me. I know, it's like, how can that possibly be, right? But the family didn't like me at all, right? Did not like me. And they tried. They would say stuff and do stuff and make little comments and that sort of thing. And what eventually happened, I stopped hanging. I stopped going over there. I wouldn't. You want to go? I ain't going. You go by yourself. I'm not going. You know, my kids are not going over there either. I just wouldn't go. I wouldn't participate. Wouldn't be around those kind of people, right? And that does cause problems. So, but if she would have to be willing to leave too. If a woman is not, if the person whose family is dogging the, think about it for the rest of your life. I want to be with you for the rest of my life. But then your family is dogging them out, but you're not defending them, and you're not telling the family, if you say one more thing about my husband, one more thing about my wife, then I'm done with y'all. Because this is the person I want to be with the rest of my life. But you know you can't be with that person if your family's dogging them out. And if you give them that control, they'll always have it. They'll always have that control. And you cannot let them have that control. I have told people in my family that my wife will always be number one over you guys. I tell that to my children. You jokers are never number one when it comes to my wife, because y'all gonna grow up and get your own families and leave me, but this person is gonna be with me forever. That's the plan, at least. This person gonna be with me forever. So I know my kids will never be number one. And when I was dating, if a woman told me that her kids come before anybody else, I would cut it off right then. Cut it off, because I know that them kids will have rule over this relationship that and it'll affect me that way. And I've already been in that situation where the kids took precedence over me, and I would never do that again. That's right. Keep what you do in the relationship. Don't discuss. That's right. Don't discuss that stuff with your family. All right. Forever, forever, ever, forever, ever. Yeah, forever. But no, I don't. I've been in that way. I've seen that where the kids got so much control, and it doesn't work. The kids got that much control, they'll always have it. Even when they leave, they'll have it. And I hate to say it, but there's only a few women who could probably overcome that, who could probably let that go. But it's not worth it to me. It's really, really just not worth it, to try to get her to change. Because guess what? She's probably not going to change with you. She's going to change with the next one. So you're just going to train them up. And I vow that I'm not training up nobody else. That's it. No more training. Training's over. Not at my expense. Now, if you're paying me to train you, that's different. I take that. But I'm not doing it with my emotions and with my time. So, but yeah, outside influence, family, friends, co-workers. That's why, I don't know if you guys saw the video I did, and I talked about work husbands and work wives and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe that at all. You come to me talking about something with my work husband, my work wife. I barely even like the y'all don't call them girlfriends no more. What do y'all call them? Friend girls, the friend girls and friend boys and all that. I don't even. I'm watching some of them. You can't spend too much time with them fools, because they will mess up your relationship. Now, I'm not trying to isolate somebody like a controlling person. It's all about protecting the relationship. So if you were in a polygamous situation or a polyamorous situation or even a monogamous situation, you always have to protect your relationship from outside influences, from people who if they see that you're happy, they have to destroy your happiness. There's no way they can allow you to be happy. And if you're in a polygamous relationship, they damn sure got to destroy your relationship, because there is no way that they can sit there and watch you build a financial empire, build your emotional strength, and y'all have a wonderful, loving family situation that's just amazing. There's no way they can allow you to have that, because they know that they're not going to do it themselves, but yet they want that happiness. And so they have to destroy it so they can say, see, that's why you don't do that, see? Okay, Maggie Love said, what's the point of polygamy when spirituality is about individuality? Well, That's an interesting question, actually. You know, because here's the thing. This is my thought on that, and some of you guys may not agree, and that's fine. But we exist on this third dimensional, fourth dimensional plane. In the fleshly matter form, right? And spiritually, we exist both higher dimension and current dimension. Most of us are incomplete just within ourselves spiritually, where our male and female energy are not joined together, where we don't have our inner twin flame going right. I believe that we first have to get our inner twin flames in unison, working well with each other, before we can join with somebody else. Because the joining of people, whether intimately or just in friendship or in love, we in this physical plane, this matter plane, need to join with other people of like-mindedness and like spirituality in order for us to reach the next level of consciousness. Like even though the people take the biblical version literal as it's not good for man to be alone, as a literal husband-wife situation, but what I'm saying is that it is not good